Today I chose to talk about Indira Ghandi, also known as the Iron Lady of India. She's a very interesting individual to research. There is so much about her and so many things that she did and didn't do during her time that I had to kind of pick and choose what we would talk about today. She was born on November 19th, 1917. She was the only child of the future first Prime Minister of India. She was destined to be a political figure. At 12, she formed or helped form a group called the Monkey Brigade. This was during a time when England was in India and occupied India, and India was starting to try to want to be independent, and they didn't want England to occupy them anymore. So the Monkey Brigade was essentially a group of children who warned people of impending arrests by the British government. The thought behind this group of children was, who would suspect a child of ratting on someone or trying to overthrow the government. So at a very young age, Indira Ghandi was someone who wanted to be a political figure. She was destined to be a political figure. She always wanted to follow in her father's footsteps. Her mother died when she was very young, so her education from politics came very honestly from him and his political exploits. In 1938, Indira joined the Indian National Congress, and she was then married in 1942 and had two children, Rajiv and Sanjay. Rajiv and Sanjay are her two sons, would follow in her footsteps later in life as well. In 1947, India gained its independence, and her father became Prime Minister of India. He became the first Prime Minister of India when India gained their independence from Great Britain. And he was the Prime Minister until 1964 when he died, and the second Prime Minister came into reign. While in the Indian National Congress, Indira pushed for each Indian family to have a cheap television. She felt like everybody should be able to afford the small luxuries in life to be informed. People should be informed about their government before they vote. 90% of Indians at that time were illiterate. They were not people that could read or write well, so they relied on word of mouth to get all of their information and their news. So she had a movement where she wanted everyone to have a cheap television or a cheap radio so they could be informed before they went to the polls and voted. This was a big deal to them. This was part of the movement for her to bring India out of poverty. Many people appreciated what she did. In 1967, Indira was elected as the first female Prime Minister of India. One of the biggest things she did for India, she wanted to bring India, as I said, out of poverty. She created something called the Green Revolution. It was where India became independent with grain production. So and still today, a lot of our grains come from India. But she wanted India to be independent and a little wealthier country because it's always traditionally been a very poor country. And after she was elected Prime Minister, she stayed Prime Minister for 3 terms, but they weren't consecutive. So in 1975, she implemented a controversial voluntary sterilization program. And depending on which website you look at, one website, history.com, says it was a government-mandated sterilization program to control India's population. Another website, kingscollege.com, says it was a voluntary sterilization program. What it sounds like is it probably wasn't very voluntary, because it caused an uprising. It caused people to riot in the streets. And when this happened, she declared martial law, and she became kind of a totalitarian president. She took people's civil rights away and civil liberties away. For about 3 years, from 74 to 1977, she took those civil liberties away, and people called it the Reign of Terror. because she put insurgents in jail. She imprisoned people that didn't agree with her. In 1977, things calmed down a little, and she decided to open the polls back up. She thought she might be popular enough again, and she could possibly be reelected. It didn't happen. She actually was not reelected until 1980. So she missed one whole term because of what happened with the government. She was voted back in 1980 and served until 1984. In 1984, some things happened with the Sikhs, which was a group of people who were a group of people in India with a specific religious belief, a specific set of beliefs that they revolved around. It's very, very in depth from what I read. The Sikhs had taken over the Golden Temple in India, and it was deemed an act of terrorism by the Indian government. So Indira went and squashed that act of terrorism and destroyed the Golden Temple. She did a lot in between 80 and 84 against groups like this that didn't agree and that kind of were insurgent groups and terroristic type groups. And it just so happened that her bodyguards were Sikhs. And the bodyguards assassinated her in 1984. After her bodyguards assassinated her, her son Rajiv took over from 1985 to 1989. He was actually also assassinated. The tragic story of this family is his brother Sanjay was the one that was actually the political figure, the one that everybody thought would be the politician, and he died in a plane crash in 1980. So Rajiv gave up what he was doing at the time, and he decided to get into the political field. And after his mother was assassinated, he took over, only to be assassinated by a suicide bomber in 1990. So this family is a really interesting family to talk about. The Gandhi family is not related to Mahatma Gandhi, which I didn't know. However, in the beginning, Mahatma Gandhi was someone who her father looked up to. She did marry a Gandhi, a man by the last name of Gandhi that was not related. And I don't think a lot of people know that she's not related to the traditional Mahatma peace-loving Gandhi that we all know. She was a very interesting individual, and she did bring India a lot of independence. She brought them out of a lot of the dark that they had been facing for so many years. She helped them gain their freedom from Britain, but it was in a very tragic way. I hope I have informed you some about Indira Ghandi. I will read more on her now that I've started, because she really is a very interesting individual, and politically in the world she really did create quite a stir.